Greetings and salutations. We hope this winter missive finds you and yours happy and healthy and counting your blessings around a comforting Yuletide fire. We are probably in John and Patty's family room trying to digest that weirdly textured stew he insists on calling chili. Unless, of course, the Lincolnwood plumbing blew up. And then we're in Danny and Diane's kitchen, already computing what a crappy car ride home we have ahead of us. Either way, we hope you're all comfortable. For the record, it's been a while since we sent one of these. So you might want to top off your eggnog or your wine glass or get a fresh Cosmo Patty and snuggle down into the cushions. We're going to be here for a while. As a matter of clarification, because I can see some of you trying to figure it out, the last one of these was published in December of 2014. Wow. Yeah. And it was only a one-page letter. It captured pretty clearly, in Conor's words, what had been a pretty shitty year. It also made the bold claim that we would always be the Flahertys on Catalpa, even though we were selling Mom and Dad's house. Little did we know that the uncultured swine who moved into the house would put a television in Dad's living room. Seriously. And a trampoline in Dad's yard. Heathens, Neanderthals, have they no respect for tradition? Bob and Amy recently reported that the windows in the tower bathroom have been also been replaced. Not that they were sleeping or anything, but we can only hope that that bathroom skylight continues to leak, and that the new owners still haven't figured out that buzzing noise that keeps them awake at night is the raccoon deterrent siren Dad put in the attic. And we know one thing for sure. I bet Mrs. Kochman is rude to them. Sorry about that. I'm a little sentimental for the old palace that was our home growing up. I know we all took a little of it with us when we were packing up, but nothing will ever replace Dad's chair in the corner of the living room or Mom at the head of her dining room table. But we will do our best. On with the show. As you can imagine, it's a pretty daunting task to fit 3 years into one letter. So much has happened since 2014, I almost don't know where to start. My head turns towards birthdays and weddings and babies, but my heart does a cannonball straight into Kathleen's new hot tub.
Come on over.
Oh, we get there. You heard right. Kathleen installed a 6-person temperature control. You know more Ancestry.com for Kathleen. She now works with actual living people. In her case, a bunch of the same little cretins Amy spends so much time with. And the toll on her body has been devastating. Not a day goes by that she doesn't share some new ailment or injury on Facebook and get wonderfully supportive feedback from her friends, who are probably Russian spam bots. Kathleen assures us they are real. All the exertion is taking a toll on her social life as well. And Kathleen's Harley runs and biker bashes have been slashed dramatically. With her luxurious Morticia Adams eyelashes. She does look particularly alluring in her leather fringed halter top, Daisy Duke cutoffs, and biker boots. And she's hoping that frequent and longer napping will get her back in that particular saddle in a jiffy. Vroom, vroom. All right, my heart has spoken. Back to the regularly scheduled programming. But first, thank you, Kathleen, for having a sense of humor about yourself and letting me get my rhythm back at your expense. Let's see if I can keep it up. Now, the arrangement of this newsletter is always up for grabs, and as we said, 3 years is a long time. We've had some major milestones in that window. I will try to do this quasi-chronologically without implying any significance or importance, and we will start with the old fella at the top of the totem pole, Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill, in case you were hiding under a rock, turned 90 a couple of years ago. We had a little shindig on the Itasca porch to mark the occasion. Distant branches of the family tree assembled on a pleasant July evening. We had chicken, corn on the cob, and sliced tomatoes at his request. And thank God Bob brought his grill because, true to form, Danny ran out of propane. We had a wonderful slideshow and a series of toasts and speeches, and then we tried to burn the porch down. His birthday candles looked like one of those hillside infernos off of 504, just north of Los Angeles. In typical fashion, Uncle Bill turned a celebration about him into a wonderful talk about his parents, his family, and all of us, and avoided the spotlight. So we did it again the next year, in hopes of getting him to accept how amazing he is and how much he means to us. This time, Aunt Jeannie was able to make it. And she brought Marlene Flanagan and one of her other college roommates, and they drank all of Diane's wine. And spent most of the evening plotting how they could get back to Winnetka without passing through any DUI checkpoints. There were a few less speeches and an even more impressive birthday conflagration, and we made doubly sure to have chocolate chip ice cream with chocolate syrup and peanuts, because after 91 years, a man knows what he wants and wants what he knows. Other than the occasional nap on the altar that scares the shit out of everyone, and moments like when we have to introduce him to that amazing new culinary creation called pizza, Uncle Bill is still trucking along, checking in on each of us and keeping us honest. We hope to see you all this upcoming July for number 92. Dan already drilled another hole in the birthday water ski he made. Come on, Peg boys, what's it gonna take? The next stop in our little journey around the clan is in the newly gentrified Jefferson Park with Elizabeth and Christian and Wally and the newest addition to their little planet Dagobah. I'm guessing you already knew, since everyone in the world who isn't Amish or a Luddite already knows thanks to Tiny Beans. But we welcomed the newest member of our tribe a little over a year ago, and she has been an absolute joy. Anne Margaret, or Annie Marge to those in the know, is the spitting, or should I say howling, image of her mother. If you were lucky enough to know Ebbs as a baby, watching Annie screech like a wolverine trapped under a fallen tree brings back memories we have desperately been trying to suppress. While conditions have begun to slowly improve, for most of the past year, our little princess didn't like to be held by anyone other than her mother and father. And while we certainly agree that they are oddly beautiful in a sort of Wesleyan Buttercup way, it's not like we were pinching Annie or anything. Anyway, time flies, and Annie Marge just turned 1. And although there were too many strangers and it didn't rise up to the strangeness of the earlier Halloween party that included Grandma Patty dressed up as Carl Fredrickson, Max dressed up as Les Nessman, and Bibbo showing up in an adult-sized Teletubby costume that he apparently owns. And Margaret's birthday was a rockin' good time. Annie inhaled a cupcake, got more presents than a Toys for Tots parade, and got to watch her mother blow out the candle on what we can only assume was a recycled Ukrainian wedding cake. Happy birthday, Annie. It wasn't the only thing Christian and Elizabeth were up to these last 3 years. Ev's got a degree or a certificate or a stamp or something, and now she is a counselor at Northside College Prep. She works with some of the brightest bulbs on one of the oddest strings of lights in the whole city. Not a whole lot of pot-smoking, teenage pregnancy, my boyfriend's in a gang angst going on at that high school. More like my sandwich has to be cut into triangles. Everyone knows Batman would beat Superman in a fight. And there were 82 toothpicks, 46 total in the box. And Christian, well, what can we say about Christian? Apparently, Mr. Big-Time Lawyer Guy would fit right in at Northside. Hell, he would probably be president of the senior class. Seems Christian has an entire basement shrine dedicated to the Star Wars universe. That was the Dagobah joke from earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, but that was the swampy planet where Yoda trained Luke. He said there is no try, only do. I mean, granted, he could have much more concerning basement-centered hobbies like taxidermy or cross-dressing. But one of the smartest, funniest, most athletic guys in our family, Shrubbery, is a closet Jedi Knight. This is freaking awesome. It's like finding out Billy collects porcelain cat figurines. Or Michael likes Ninja Turtles. Or, okay, so he's no weirder than the rest of us. And besides, the author of the newsletter could name all of his characters too. Rock on, Christian, and may the force be with you. Our next stop most certainly has to be at the spectacular wedding of a certain Michael Flaherty to his beautiful bride. In case you missed the festivities, Michael married Gina in downtown Milwaukee. You didn't see that one coming, did you? Rather than make this a one-off joke, allow us to comment that Big Mike, or Big Papa, as he is very affectionately known among the Catalpans, along with Casey and Karen and Katie and Tim, and everyone who has been blessed to know them, had the time of our lives, celebrating two of the nicest people on the whole damn planet. In fact, Bill and Terry crossed the state line into Wisconsin for the first time in over 20 years. Although Billy was apparently worried about some outstanding warrants, he told an Uncle Michael and headed back to Brookfield about the same time the streetlights came on. Anyway, Big Mike, who once upon a time lived with Grandma and dented her couch into oblivion, I like that joke. Included Grandma in the prayers of the faithful. And the author of this newsletter, for one, was very, very touched by the gesture. In the 2 years that have passed, Mike and Gina have since welcomed little Lacey, and seeing how everyone was fighting over her, holding her at Great Uncle Michael's funeral, we are confident that little girl won't have to learn to walk until she is 12. Speaking of Great Uncle Michael, this would probably be a good time to mention the other family members who have moved on and joined Grandma Kath at the Great Luau in the Sky. We lost.
So lost on some people.
All right. We lost not only Uncle Michael, but Aunt Nancy as well, and while they were usually the first to leave every gathering, they still left much too early for us. We lost Anne Louise, who for better or worse was an adopted Flaherty. We were a little verklempt at the one-legged New Age Indigo Girls preacher who presided at her services.
You only have one left.
And Patty figured any of her brothers could have done better than that lady. But for the hell of it, she gave Anne Louise a beautiful send-off, and at least no one hit a deer on the way home. We lost Grandpa Vern Caproni, and although I could spend entire paragraphs on Johnny Caproni choosing to wear one of Sammy Davis Jr.'s Ocean 11 suits to the service, or Chris Murphy officiating in an odd gray clerical shirt tweed jacket combo, and all of Vern's pals from the OTB who sat with us at the luncheon, instead we will only say that Vern was a gentle, kind, and thoughtful man, and he will dearly be missed. All right, everyone take a deep breath. Probably not as much as Michael has, but here we go. The last time we wrote one of these, Tessa was this quasi-mysterious marathon runner who somehow tempted Michael off his couch and into the great outdoors. In the intervening years, she's become less mysterious, but no less impressive. If I heard right, she did some sort of team marathon thing where they ran from Madison, Wisconsin, all the way down to Foster and Cicero. Why Labaugh Woods was the finish line is oddly random, since Danny and Billy both spent some quality time picking up after ethnic picnics. But anyway, Tessa did most of the running while Michael rode in the support van in case of an emergency or a blister or something. Mick brought her to a few family functions, and Tessa made fun of both Billy and Danny. We knew she would fit in. We learned she was from Woodstock and figured she was an expert at cow tipping and other 4-H stuff. We also learned that she had an affinity for the Wisconsin Badgers. And since it wasn't like it was Michigan or USC, we're prepared to let that one slide. We learned that her brothers played football and thought about toning down our teasing. But then we learned that she not only did marathons, she competed in Ironman triathlons, and we figured she could kick our asses all over. So we're going to be nice to her. Oh, by the way, one of her brothers is named after a Wookiee. So Christian really likes it. Now it seems that Tessa is an executive advisor for CEV, now Gartner, the industry leader in providing best practice management, talent acquisition, and technological solution services to help clients maximize both potential and profits, which we really don't understand. And it sounds really expensive. Anyway, she not only got Michael off the couch, she got him to run a marathon of his own. When that happened, we knew it was only a matter of time. Michael arranged for an exceptionally romantic engagement proposal, which the junior women's cabal snooped out. So there are actual pictures taken from an unobtrusive panel van. Or maybe the Flaherty sisters were in the bushes like Navy SEALs or Green Berets. It was never really clear on that part. But anyway, Tessa said yes, and we got the pictures to prove it. I know there was a lot of stuff in between, but for the sake of brevity and sanity, let's just say the next thing we know, we were all looking for parking in Lincoln Park. Except for Billy, that is, he rode the shuttle bus to save $8. The wedding itself was breathtaking. The church was gorgeous. Tessa looked incredible. And Michael looked pretty good for Michael. He seemed kind of nervous and stiff, but luckily Father Wayne Watts was officiating. And he is anything but stiff. He was bouncing around like a JV cheerleader at a pep rally. And Margaret held it together long enough to walk in with her mother and was immediately whisked away right back out by her father. With the smoothness of the Jamaican relay team, handing off the baton in the final leg of the 4x100. Tessa's godmother gave a spirited, some would almost say intense, reading from the Old Testament. And our dear Peggy also gave a reading while gripping the podium so fiercely that she left dents in the wood. Mike Collins read the prayers of the faithful off some cocktail napkins provided by Patty. They called on all his skills as a gifted improvisational comic. And the Budmeyer boys forgot their grandmother. So Father Watts walked her out. Now Patty's cousin from the funeral home couldn't get the town car. So Michael and Tessa and the wedding party rode to the reception in the streetcar trolley looking thing. Some pictures later circulated of Tessa's new sisters-in-law doing keg stands and waving people out the windows. But how else are they expected to react when their big brother gets married? Well, they were on the trolley and Bill was on the shuttle. Some of the guests walked 2 or 3 blocks to Jim and Hillary's house. Apparently blocks is a different unit of measurement across the pond. Metric system and all that, right, Hillary? Once we all arrived at the reception in the beautiful Intercontinental Hotel, located right across the street from Michael and Tessa's apartment, since Michael wasn't too keen on spending money on a hotel room, the fun really started. First, Tessa's maid of honor revealed how the night of Tessa and Michael's first encounter went. It would seem we had a couple of make-out maniacs. Everyone was certain that playing tonsil hockey with a stranger was out of character for both of them. So maybe it was destiny. And then Conor gave the traditional best man speech. And he crushed it on the way. He was sincere and witty and touching. And while I'm still not sure whether Conor is the new sheriff or Tessa is the new sheriff, I think Conor should be in charge of all future toasts at every occasion. Yeah? Okay, he's in. Mr. Budmeyer gave a very gracious toast. We do recognize that you are taking an enormous chance on Michael. And we appreciate it.
So far, so good.
Budmeyer's even invited John and Patty to join them in toasting our newest couple with health, happiness, and a bright future. And while Patty looked like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming car, once again, it was incredibly gracious. We are so thankful that you trust Tessa not only with Michael, but with the rest of us who are close. Then the dancing started, and things got a little fuzzy. gentle. I do know that Tessa introduced the younger cousins to a Wisconsin ritual involving small glasses. Diane started to boss the waitstaff around, and most of Michael's friends demonstrated an amazing lack of any sense of rhythm. And of course, there was a photo booth with lots of props, so there were more than a few really awkward pictures, but what else is new for one of our parties? It was an incredibly wonderful evening. On the Flaherty side, we got to see some people we haven't seen in a while. Chris and Elida brought Patch and Sally, and Danny spent most of the evening trying to convince Elida she would really like to live in Lombard. Philip and Holly and their fearsome foursome came as well, and it was especially fun that we got to mark Philip's 50th birthday and Sophie's 16th with much smaller wildfires on the Itasca porch. While there was some concern that Murphy and Sydney might actually pet Violet and Stella to death, outside of a little gastric distress from too many treats, the dogs are doing fine. By the way, did you see Sophie's artwork on the internet?
Yeah.
Cripes, she's good. I'm hanging up the scroll saw and coming up to Gurnee to soak in the tub. But I digress. Tessa and Michael waited a couple of months and then headed off to Italy for their honeymoon. I don't know, maybe Michael had a coupon or something. They brought back lots of wonderful pictures of churches, of artwork, of the seashore, of their breakfast plates, and one of Tessa going all Beatlemania on Pope Francis. And climbing over the poor little ones in front of her to touch him. They also brought back the exciting news that they will be adding to the family funny farm in the spring. You got it? They're having a baby. I will now avoid all jokes that might anger Grandma Patty, and I will only say that I'm not really keen on calling this new bundle of joy our little Bambino. But thank God they didn't honeymoon in Jamaica. Your little Rasta man meant too much for even me.
Thanks for explaining.
In all seriousness, we're very excited for both of you and can't wait to meet our newest Klansman. He or she will technically be the heir to the throne. Michael and I got that all figured out. See, Tess, that wasn't too bad. And Grandpa in Lincolnwood, Dr. John, and his ravishing wife, Patty. Rather than let grandparenting slow them down, our daring duo have become the jet setters of our family tree. Whether flying by private jet, or even lowering their standards and flying commercial. They've been to Hawaii, New England, and Canada, to name just a few of their most recent destinations. Most of the trips seem to involve hiking John up a mountain so he can turn white and other checkers can check his heart rate. But occasionally they will do something fun, like put food from the complimentary buffet in their pockets to save on breakfast costs. And you were wondering where Michael gets his food. And while Patty seems to have violated all natural laws on the space-time continuum, we can confirm that John recently turned 60 years old. Yikes. We threw a little party to celebrate, but wouldn't you know it, Gary Graff showed up. And with his big, soft brown eyes, in his habit of touching you earnestly and affectionately when speaking to you, everybody pretty much forgot about John. At least the women folk all went into some weird little hypnotic spell. Even Annie fell under his spell. Well, we flirty men can't figure it out, and maybe that's the point. Anyway, Patty is timeless, and John is now a favorite of old. Speaking of old guys, it'd be a good time to check in with the Harriet Tubman of the Artisan Diaspora. Did I say it right? Diaspora. Our brother Paul, who whizzed right by 60 and is now 61. Now, if you didn't get the Harriet Tubman reference, just imagine Z as the conductor on the Underground Railroad, sneaking away the oppressed and enslaved. And you will catch my drift. Paul, you may remember, left CPS and is back working as a social worker in the western suburbs. It has removed a lot of stress from his life, though to be honest, not all of it. And he gets to wear his earrings to work. Z will occasionally participate in a mini triathlon of his own and then spends the following weeks creaking and limping around with his walking. another little health scare we won't bring up. But when Paul isn't fretting about his increasingly larger and more outgoing children, he's picking up the odd piece of clothing and furniture from his front yard. Just to be clear, the larger child is Jimmy, who has feet that defy description, and the more outgoing ones are Maggie and Caitlin, whom we will get to shortly. Interestingly, Paul seems to spend a lot of time sending off corrective notes to the priests in his parish. So maybe he really didn't get that whole pastor thing out of his system. Who knows? Bill and Terry are still snuggled away in their little Brookfield love bungalow. In fact, Billy is snuggled more deeply than a tapeworm. Since last we talked, Billy retired from his role as a titan of industry, and now it takes teams of wild horses to get him out of his house. Now, to be fair, Bill actually waited until the Cubs won the World Series, and then he pulled the plug on Alphabet. I mean, if that wasn't a sign from heaven, what else could he wait for? So now he just lounges around his house watching Andy Griffith and tending his crops. Sort of like Alphatech, only Bob isn't there. He and Terry do pop out to celebrate anniversaries and the like at the local Culvers. And then they race home to rest Bill's weary bones in his weary lower intestine. There were some whispers about Terry having a cage in the basement for when Billy was naughty, but we think Billy was just being silly. We can't imagine him being flexible enough to fold himself into any size cage. Not that he hasn't researched his lack of flexibility on WebMD and determined that he has scoliosis or scurvy or something. By this point, WebMD is his homepage, in case you were wondering. He still has the Hooter Girl charity car wash page in his favorites, but he spends his much too plentiful free time looking up all the ways he is symptomatic of every fatal disease yet discovered. We got to find something for him to do. Amy needs classroom aides, Bill. Hell, I bet Terry could hook you up with a job. Is Philip Solo still around? All right, we've already talked about our resident nudist, so let's move along to the always adorable Perky Peggy. Major changes for Peggy.
Yeah.
Now, she discarded most of her phobias like old candy wrappers. First, she vanquished the whole public speaking thing at Michael and Tessa's wedding. And then the whole fear of flying thingamabob disappeared in a puff of smoke. Now she spends a lot of time jetting all over the place with and without Uncle Bill. Inquiring minds wonder if she found some new wonder sedative. It may also account for the few bouts of vertigo leading to tumbles. But we're convinced that Peggy's promotion to vice president in charge of something important at Thresholds has her emerging from her chrysalis and striking out with vigorous confidence. Peggy the Perky Butterfly. It has a certain ring to it, doesn't it? Anyway, Angus and McHugh still eat at her table and still manage to escape through Yarden in her never-ending pursuit of neighborhood skunks. And Peggy gets to go sit at meetings with Rahm Emanuel. Those two things have much more in common than you realize. Besides flying with Uncle Bill, Peggy does the lion's share of the fetching and toting of our patriarch, to and from family gatherings. We can only hope that Peggy is writing it all down. Morgan Freeman won an Oscar for driving Miss Daisy. We're pretty sure Peggy will win a Pulitzer or a Nobel or whatever for driving Uncle Bill. Might as well check in with Dan and Diane out in Itasca. Not much going on with the western fringe of the family tree. Diane had her kitchen remodeled and left for South Africa with Amy as soon as the demolition began. They didn't go entirely native, but it was fairly primitive since they couldn't get the square ice cubes for Diane to put in her wine. Dan decided he would play basketball with Paulie, Jack, and Pack, and ended up with a plate and 7 screws holding his wrist together. And just to be absolutely clear, it was no one's fault but Dan's. He was never very coordinated to begin with, and he sort of bounced off the scrum and landed on the concrete like a mortally wounded water buffalo. Oh yeah, since we last checked in, Dan and Diane joined the country club across the street. Neither of them are very good at golf, but Diane gets to boss even more people around and wear cute little outfits. And Dan gets to donate golf balls to the water god and wear really awful pants. Oh, and Dan got a Mini Cooper convertible. Probably the only convertible in the world that drives exclusively in the right lane with the blinkers on. But hey, as his wife continually reminds us, he's a simple guy. He does seem to grow facial hair like the fuzzy pumper barbershop Play-Doh guy, but that's only because Johnny has thrown down the gauntlet with that snappy little jazz business. Hard to believe the human Chia Pet and Mr. Babyface are actually brothers. If Amy and buy a hobby farm somewhere in Tennessee. Now that both of their sons are technically emancipated adults, Amy and Bob's eyes are wandering towards warmer climes. They have always certainly been our family travelers, and they added Alabama and Alaska to the list recently. So maybe they're just doing this alphabetically or something. Look out, Arizona, you're next. If memory serves, they've been there already with Dorothy. It would probably be easier if we just made a list of all the places they haven't been. Oh yeah, make sure to have Bob tell you the story about walking up within 10 feet of a grizzly bear and how he made the selfless decision to protect Amy by throwing some other family's teenager at the bear. And while we're at it, ask to see pictures of Amy and Bob kayaking amongst the unstable ice shelves of Prince William Sound, or flying in a little plane that was about the same shape as their rummage sale Chevy Suburban. I'm having a nervous breakdown just talking about it. And while I could spend hours discussing Amy going in for indigestion and coming out short one kidney, or Bob dragging back an antique Apache pickup truck from the Carolinas, or Amy deciding to challenge her brother Paul for the most postgraduate degrees, or Bob's exciting, some would say thrilling, new grilling technique.
Oh, wow. Oh, that was
I think I'm Patty and Max are well. Although I think by this point going to the emergency room is like a trip to Supercuts for the Capronis, and their next visit is free. Every Caproni and his brother seems to break, bend, snap, or thump some body part on a weekly basis. Maybe they can all just join the chess team. Max has been extra busy since people started paying attention to the fact that police officers are shooting people. And Patty now previews all of HBO's and Netflix's offerings and provides guidance to her siblings. They also got a new dog and named her Emmanuel, which confused Danny at first, since this is Noelle Sedural's given name. And he worried the dog might make some of Noelle's same life choices, and end up with an arranged marriage in the Philippines. In all seriousness, they've had a couple of crummy years since two of the biggest losses affected them most directly. But Grandma Laverne moved up to Lakeshore Drive. Now they don't have to change the oil in their cop cars as often. They took family trips to Boston and Nashville to visit their oldest two sons, and they're planning a journey to Italy with the whole crew in the spring. Well, let's just hope they don't come back with a surprise Michael and Tessa reveal. Probably have to name them Jesus. Not sure where I should have stuck Hillary, Jim, and Saul and Rocky, so we'll do it here. If you haven't heard, the Bonnie Scott and the Baltimore Economist snuck off and got married about 2 years ago. We kind of understand them wanting Saul there. We can't figure out for the life of us why they didn't invite the rest of us. It's not like we write anything down. Anyway, they are still ensconced in their beautiful Belden Street home with the Macy's display window in front, which allows passerby to freely observe the goings-on. And of course, their rooftop garden. Kudos to Jim for carrying the lawnmower up 3 flights of stairs once a week.
Is he really?
And while they enjoy the Lincoln Park area, with both Jim and Saul now enrolled at the University of Chicago, in one way or another, they are eyeing a move to Hyde Park. Hillary has it narrowed down to 4 specific houses that aren't technically for sale yet, that she would consider. But as you know, she can be very persuasive. Hillary is now a full-fledged therapist, and while her inherently Scottish response, "We're all Chuck Thompson's Barnsey, we know buck to get over yourself," may not be helpful. The patients keep coming back. Jim still studies some branch of economics which we don't quite understand, and he's not too good at explaining. And Saul, who kind of sprouted overnight, is now an amateur magician. A very good amateur magician. Just ask him to perform a card trick for Dr. John, and watch how confused Johnny gets. And thus, we arrive at Conor the Barbarian. Not to put any pressure on you, Conor, but it's about time to give Michael a chance to give a speech of his own. I'm still pretty sure Conor's already married and his children are probably But after all these years, I still can't get a word out of him. Conor still works at Northwestern Memorial Hospital doing something or the other. While there, he's able to enjoy his father leaping out from behind filing cabinets to wrestle him, which you know he just absolutely loves. And he's living in a swinging bachelor pad somewhere around Lakeview. There were a few stories about Michael's bachelor party that are better not repeated. And it's always a joy to watch Conor watch a sporting event. The concentration of a nuclear physicist splitting an atom. And the way he grimaces at odd moments. It's almost like he's losing money every time a Jacksonville Jaguar wide receiver drops a pass or something. Maura works in a gardening store in San Francisco. Or at least she worked in a gardening store. Now she works with a bunch of guys who probably went to Northside. Doing something in the tech field that we also don't completely understand. She does explain that her primary role is to go to the office and to try to help the engineer types develop their social skills. As well as give them fashion pointers. As I understand it, Maura is being courted by some British guy. He started out as a lowly grocer and now owns enormous tracts of land. I am strongly encouraging this relationship, simply because I have a backlog of Monty Python and the Holy Grail guaranteed to make Johnny and Billy laugh. We're also kind of hoping she gets invited to Prince Harry's wedding. Maybe you can sit next to the Obamas. To be brutally honest, no matter what I write here, it will be nowhere near as funny as Maura telling stories about herself. Maybe we should have at last found someone to pick up the newsletter torch. We're guessing Kevin is a male model for the chubby brand of ridiculously short shorts. That seems to be all he ever wears. We're not sure if you saw his pictures from the Brookfield Independence Day Parade, but he looked like an extra from an Elton John video. who had wandered into the festivities. He's not here, okay. In addition to modeling his bulges, Kevin still works with Will and is also serving as a classroom aide for SACID. He hasn't ridden his bike down to Soldier Field in a while, and while he usually runs around without shoes, we blame that on his unusually calloused feet from being chief lifeguard at the Brookfield pool. Imagine that, Kevin is in charge. That is probably the most laid-back working environment outside of Woody Harrelson's film company. Whatever, dude, just make sure nobody drowns. All right, solid. Sarah graduated from Tulane, and so she and her dad got tattoos. Seriously. He's like Taskins might as well live in a trailer park. Sarah came home and worked for a while for Amy at SACID, but then decided she wanted to try her hand in the medical field. She moved down to Lincoln Park and got a job at a Michigan Avenue medical clinic. She had a studio apartment, so she got a rescue dog named Stella for company. Stella was quiet and laid back until Sarah took her to the vet, and they diagnosed the 20-odd things wrong with her. After a bunch of shots of medicine, Stella is no longer quiet and laid back. Now she's more like the Tasmanian devil on meth. While at the Michigan Avenue Clinic, Sarah got a close-up look at what herpes do to a woman's genitalia. And she decided she really wanted to work with autistic children. She's back home in Itasca working at SACID again and was just admitted to Dominican University in their Master's in Special Education program. Hey, that's where her father got his master's. Maybe they'll have some of the same teachers. Then again, maybe Dominican, which was known as Rosary College when Dan was there, actually has some teachers who know what they're talking about. Claire is a real, live, no-kidding nurse at Northwestern University Hospital. She even has the scrubs that say registered nurse on them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Claire recently graduated from Villanova University, and rather than follow the standard career path of slumming around and maybe doing some volunteer work, she got a real job. Aunt Jeannie was hoping she'd stay in Philadelphia to do some graduate work or maybe work at a Starbucks. But Claire obviously has some gene that is recessive in most of the other grandchildren. Plus, she has expensive taste in clothes. She's too exhausted to share many stories about her new gig, although a little bird told us that she is a little put out by her father hanging around and frightening away all the hot young residents. Claire being Claire, we know we will have some really gnarly bedside stories for the next newsletter. A degree in athletic training or massaging the women's soccer team or whatever it was. And he decided he wanted to volunteer for a year with the JVC in Mobile, Alabama. See what I mean about recessive genes? Maura tried to warn him off about the Deep South, but Paulie persisted. And he got to witness the Judge Roy Moore campaign close up. He reports that not many of the people he works for and with are creepy pedophile racist assholes. But apparently Alabama has a lot of them. Just not enough this time, thank God. Anyway, when Paul left Loris, half of their extracurricular clubs went belly up. And the local Menards lost its most dedicated employee. Seems like the people running the program he volunteers for now figured out about his work ethic, and Paulie now works days, nights, weekends, and holidays. Uncle Dan is going to have to pull him aside and explain, if you're not getting paid, you get extra sick days. In fact, you get as many sick days as you want. Rebecca is in her senior year at American University in Washington, D.C. I waited a long time to comment on this, but she's probably the one who took the last presidential election the hardest. She was so excited to be in the middle of the action, and then we went and elected the Cheeto-in-Chief. She engaged in some light civil disobedience, and even took her visiting younger brother, Jack, to a few protests. But she has always been fairly demonstrative. You remember how we used to have to toss her in the tub? Well, she decided she had to go away before she ended up in jail and spend a semester overseas. Originally, she was going to go to the University of Bravos to study with the faceless men. But Arya Stark wrote a better essay. So Becca ended up at the University of Exeter in southwest England. Truth be told, she spent more time in Dublin and Amsterdam at the pubs and coffee shops respectively than she did in class. But she also claimed she had made friends with her own personal Brienne of Tarth. Her father went to visit her, and while that adventure will be a letter of its own at some point, when Ella, the 6'5" blonde Dutch Viking princess, walked into the bar, he knew Becca wasn't kidding. All the little British men hid under their bar stools. Becca will probably do the whole volunteer thing after she graduates in May, but then again, she might just run for mayor of Itasca. Johnny is a Boston College Eagle, the same school that used Doug Flutie and Matt Ryan. I know that Patty Collins got her law degree there, but I'll still never be at peace with this. It just feels wrong. Hey, maybe I should talk about Johnny and not my weird response to the school he picked. Sorry about that. While he was in Chicago, Johnny was briefly dating a young lady whose family manufactured Garrett's popcorn, and we all got excited. Then he went off to Boston College and he went on a date with a Kennedy. A Kennedy. Not sure how that all panned out, but it gives him absolution for the BC thing. Johnny is apparently majoring in wearing retro hipster clothing and sporting a vaguely rockabilly haircut. We know he makes interesting Halloween costume choices. And he haughtily smirks at most of my questions, so I'm a little afraid he's just going to go Boston native on us. Next thing you know, he'll be parking the family cop car in the garage. Wait, you don't have a garage. Maggie is a fighting terrapin at the University of Maryland. As mentioned earlier, she's become quite outspoken. Outspoken in a good way, nay, in a great way. Formerly shy little Maggie has no problem sharing her opinions and speaking her mind, and we love her for it. Not sure her dad is completely on board all the time, but too bad for him. Maggie follows in her older female cousin's footsteps and is a bit of a fashion trendsetter, and also keeps with the Flaherty tradition of having bad things happen to the car she is driving late at night. Seems to be hardwired into all of these children. They have no idea where those dents came from. Maggie brought home some friends from Maryland to visit, and one of them didn't quite understand that Danny doesn't talk to people. Not only because he's deaf, because he doesn't like people. And the guy bent Danny's sole remaining ear for over an hour. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you, Maggie. Jack and Pat graduated from high school. We were all amazed. All right, that does it for the kids over 18. Just kidding. Jack and Pat are not twins, although they sometimes seem more alike than even Danny and Joe. And they've waited a long time for this, and they deserve their own little blurbs. Patrick wrapped up at Ignatius and enrolled at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. You may recognize the name as the alma mater of Jay Cutler. Not sure if that's a positive or a negative. Before his high school graduation, Pat was the play-by-play announcer for Ignatius sporting events and scored an exclusive interview with the newly installed Archbishop, Blaise Supich. And true to form, only Pat would ask a prince of the church if he had any hops. He could dunk. Seriously, he did that. He has absolutely no filter and also very poor judgment. His mother doesn't know whether to laugh or to cringe. Look, she's doing it now. Patrick claims he is majoring in secondary education, but I have said this about other nephews before, and this time I'm deadly serious. It's either the White House or the Big House for this kid. And then we get to Jack. He will most likely be Patrick's press secretary. Think Sarah Huckabee Sanders with nicer hair. Or he will be Patrick's getaway driver when they get pushed outside the currency exchange. They have this almost symbiotic ability to complete each other's thoughts, whether accurate or fabricated. It is both breathtakingly inspiring and deeply troubling at the same time. Anyway, Jack graduated from Montini Catholic High School after spending his senior year playing lacrosse and serving detentions for uniform infractions and tardiness, and is now enrolled at College of DuPage, where he hopes to pursue a degree in hospitality management. He figures if he opens a bar, he's got a whole army of potential clients right this morning. He has promised to have Guinness on tap, and that Uncle John's band can have a standing gig every Thursday night. So there are 2 guaranteed regulars right there. Unless I'm mistaken, that really does wrap it up for the old folks. So here are the one-hitters. Billy, you're not here. Caitlin. Oh, I'm a gifted artist, but I also have a wicked sense of humor. Watch yourself, little chubby man. Ryan, starting a new school in January and still not completely sure about the family hot dog. Jimmy passed up a chance to clean Jack's clock during a lacrosse game, but Emmett will be another story. Emmett actually runs a tab at the local 7-Eleven for candy and cherry cokes. Joe grew 1.5 feet over the summer and seems to be using Jack as a haircut role model. Danny dumped the South American girlfriend because the wounded football hero has to keep his options open. Anna, movie, 2 words. Yes, Patrick, it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And while that wraps it up, we really do hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and we truly wish you a healthy and prosperous 2018. May your days be filled with light, with love, and with laughter, peace, and Paul and the kids.